Hello everyone, my name is Seth, and today I'm going to give you my review of Fallout. Fallout is one of my favorite video game franchises. I can't even begin to tell you how many hours I've spent in Fallout 3 just alone. So I was so excited when they announced they were doing a Fallout series, although I was cautiously optimistic. But I will say I was all in when that first trailer dropped. It just seemed like they absolutely nailed the tone. And so yeah, from that first trailer, I was all in. And luckily, I think the trailer and how I felt about that was very much so representative of the show as a whole. But before we go any farther, go ahead and like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. We're getting closer and closer to 200 subscribers, so go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It's free, and make sure you're in the first 200 subscribers. I think the biggest thing for a Fallout show to get right would be the look and the tone, and they 100% nail it here. From the very beginning of the show, from the first little bit we see, it just feels like Fallout. Everything from the game is translated so faithfully, and Fallout has a very particular style, but they 100% got it right. Everything from the pre-war stuff to all of the wasteland stuff, it's just about done to perfection. And it seems like to me, the people behind the show really know what makes Fallout special. It seems like they really understand Fallout, and they understand that there's a lot of different reasons that people like Fallout. There's a lot of different elements that people really enjoy to Fallout, and somehow they were able to really kind of address almost all of those. They were able to give us a little bit of everything. Somehow they were able to balance a whole lot in this show without it seeming overwhelming or seeming like they're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. It just flows so effortlessly. It just really shows that they understand at a core what Fallout is. The tone is definitely something that could have gotten away from them. Fallout is kind of dark, but there's a humor there. You know, obviously it's dark, it's grim because we're talking about, post-apocalyptic after a giant nuclear war, and there's not a lot of happy stuff going on there. But there is a sense of humor to these games, and I think the show walks that line so well. So this show did end up having plenty of laughs, and that's something that is definitely appreciated. And another thing I really appreciate is that they didn't shy away from anything in the games, really. I guess the only other things that were missing, probably because of budget and CGI stuff, is some of the big monsters like a Deathclaw or something like that. But you have the factions, you have the dark humor, you have the violence, you have some of the weird science stuff that's in Fallout, and they don't shy away from that. They lean into it. The sets and the costumes just feel ripped right from the games, and that's just something else that goes to show they understand Fallout. They really leaned into the design of the games, and it just looks great on screen. And I love all of the wasteland stuff. There's plenty of times where they just pull the camera way back and you just see the character real small in the frame and a ton of wasteland, a ton of just nothing, maybe just one building. I think that's another thing that just helps the audience get into the world and understand it better. And another thing is I love how some of these character interactions feel like they would be right out of the game. There are plenty of times in conversations with characters where I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is where Lucy would be using her intelligence speech check, and hey, this worked, or hey, it didn't work. And maybe it's because I love the games and I was kind of looking for that in the dialogue and some of the character interactions, but it absolutely worked. It rang a bell for me, and I think if you love the games, you will definitely recognize some of those moments. But even putting that aside, just the dialogue as a whole, how some of these characters are written, feel right out of the games. And for the most part, this show looks really good. Of course, they have to use CGI for some stuff, and I think for the environments, it looks really good. Basically, anytime we see a CGI environment, I think the only time maybe the CGI suffers a little bit is when we have some like creatures and some things like that. So that didn't quite work all the time, but I would say as a whole, the CGI looked really good for like 90% of the show. There's some practical effects here, and the makeup for these practical effects look really good. And it especially looks really good on one of our main characters, played by Walton Goggins, Cooper Howard. And with him being one of our main characters, the makeup absolutely had to be on point, and it absolutely was. The music in this show is another thing that stands out to me, and it's another thing that they get right from the games, because music ends up playing a relatively big role in Fallout. You know, you're traveling these distances, you're going through the wasteland, and you're listening to some of these radio stations that come out. They play this old-timey music, which is just really fun. And I love how they were able to incorporate that music, that tone of the game, into the show in a meaningful way. And it absolutely feels like there were plenty of people behind the making of this show that play and really enjoy the game. And these songs just hit at the right time as well. So for someone like me who've played the games, who love the games, all of this attention to detail is really well appreciated. I love it, but I think it goes farther than just making the fans of the games happy. I think this helps add to the world. It helps add to the viewing experience for somebody who doesn't know anything about this franchise. It just really helps you get immersed in this whole world. I really like how they handle a lot of the story elements here. We have 3 main characters that we end up following throughout this story, and I think it's really neat that their stories all kind of interconnect and weave in and out of each other. The pacing of this story is really well done. Like I mentioned, you got these 3 characters that you're trying to balance, and they balance that really well, but there's some other side characters that we follow throughout this story as well. So they're having to balance a lot of situations and a lot of characters, and I think they nail it. Just about any time you're starting to think, oh, well, I wonder what's up with this character, they give it to you. While not all of the characters have the same amount of focus, they give you enough of each side of the story to keep you invested, and they don't leave you in the dark about anything for too long. There's plenty of mystery and intrigue in this story, and they do a great job of bringing up questions and then giving you answers, but when they give you those answers, they bring up a few more questions. They do just a great job of moving the story along at a good pace. I think the 3 main characters we follow are written really well. They're very intriguing characters, and I think they do a good job of kind of showing you 3 different perspectives on this world. We have Lucy, who is kind of our young, naive vault dweller. We have Maximus, who is this kind of up-and-coming guy in the Brotherhood of Steel. And we have Cooper Howard, who is kind of this lone wanderer, cowboy, bounty hunter kind of character. Each character's wants and needs and personalities are so well defined. You get to know these characters, and the more you get to know them, the more you like them. They do a great job with Lucy's character because she can really act as like the proxy for the audience, especially the audience who is not familiar with the games. For those people who are not familiar with the games, you can kind of learn about the world with her. She's a really likable character. She's just very nice and cheerful and hopeful, and she wants to see the good in people. Maximus is a complicated character, and I appreciate them making him as complicated as he is. Although I will say I didn't necessarily connect with him within like the first couple of episodes, but the longer the show went on, the more I liked his character. Absolutely my favorite character in this show would have to be Cooper. He has so much depth to him as a character. As a whole, he's just extremely interesting, and we get to see really 2 sides of him. He's a character where you enjoy every second he's on screen, and you always want to know more about him. One of the things I really like is all of the pre-war stuff. It helps to give us more context, both to the world and to Cooper as a character. Cooper's been through so much, and it's really interesting to go back and see his backstory unfold. It could very well be boring because it is taking us away from kind of the main plot, but everything going on with him as a character is so intriguing, it just draws you in. And I think the context here for some of the pre-war stuff is much needed context, especially for the people who are not familiar with this franchise. This really helps to fill them in, and that's one of the things they do such a great job of, is catering both to fans and to people who are just watching the show. I feel like even some of the smaller side characters we meet, whether it be for a few episodes or maybe even just one, are well written. They do a great job of capturing the tone of Fallout with these characters, and some of these characters and some of these interactions our characters have with them absolutely feel like some weirdo NPCs that you would meet in one of the games. Like I mentioned, I think the characters are well written and they're interesting, but I think the thing that really helps take them to the next level is the performances. I think some of the actors who played some of the smaller side characters, what would end up being some of the NPCs in the game, they did a good job. They just kind of 100% sold out for those characters, and they did a really good job. But the performances of our three main characters were really, really well done. Maximus was played by Aaron Moten, and he did a good job. Like I said, Maximus was a complex character, and he did a good job portraying that complexity. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of his character through the first couple of episodes, it's his performance that kept me engaged. Ella Parnell plays Lucy, and she absolutely nails every single aspect to this character. She gives us some great emotion. She has some really good dramatic moments in this show, but also she does such a great job of playing this kind of fish out of water character in The Wasteland. Her performance just helps to add to the likability of this character, and I have no idea how anybody would not like this character. Her character does grow and change as the story goes on. That's exactly what you want from a character, and her performance is very subtle and very well done to match that character growth. One thing I definitely appreciate is that they made her character capable. Even though she's very cheery, she's new to the Wasteland, she's maybe a little bit naive, she's still very capable, and Ella Parnell plays that very well. And I think the character and her performance reflects probably your character in the games as a vault dweller coming out naive, but then you get out in the Wasteland and you figure stuff out. The biggest standout to me was Walton Goggins as Cooper. He did such a great job. Like I mentioned before, his character had a ton of depth to him, both pre-war and in the Wasteland. He's dealing with this complicated relationship he has with his wife who works at Vault-Tec, and he starts to kind of question even what he believes in. And Walton Goggins played this pitch perfectly. And then you flash forward to him as the Ghoul. He's just so cool and intimidating. And I loved every second of his performance of both sides of this character. I think Walton Goggins is an incredibly talented actor. I think watch the show and you'll absolutely see why. There's so many different sides to this character that he has to bring, and he does a great job with every single point of this character. I think the whole show is shot really well. I think there's some shots in it where I just said out loud, oh wow, that's a cool shot. I love some of those big wide shots of the Wasteland. Maybe you see our character small in the frame, maybe a building or two. I think those are really good shots. I think the action was shot well too. There's a lot of fun action in this, and it definitely is reminiscent of the games. I would say this is probably one of the best video game adaptations. And honestly, I think it can get better from here. I'm so incredibly excited to see what they could do with a season 2. I really don't have any major complaints. For everything that they had to do and accomplish in this show, I believe they made fans happy, and also they made it to where people who know nothing about the games can enjoy this. And some really well developed and performed characters. The show's not perfect. There's some CGI here and there that's really not great. And one of our main characters I didn't really connect with the first 2 or 3 episodes. It's a fun show with some incredible world building, but overall I had a lot of fun, and I am very excited for season 2. And I will say, as a fan of the games, this just made me really happy. I think my score will be a 4.5 out of 5. But that's it. That's my review of Fallout. Have you seen this show? Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. Have you played the games? Have you not played the games? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this either way. Don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on social media pretty much anywhere at CinemaSeth, and I'll see you next time.